Okay, I want you to picture a modern battlefield. You've got the tanks, you've got the artillery, thousands of troops, and, swarms of drones buzzing overhead.
A terrifying high-tech machine.
Exactly. But then on a random Tuesday, the whole thing just goes blind. Not from an EMP, not a nuke, but because of a software update.
It sounds like something out of a cyberpunk novel,
Yeah.
but that is the literal reality on the front lines this week. We are watching the very idea of command and control just disintegrate in real time.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Saturday, February 7th, 2026. We are looking at a specialized intelligence briefing that covers what I think we can safely call the most chaotic week in global security in a long, long time.
It's certainly a week where the facade has cracked. I mean, you have a convergence of events that might look separate on the ticker, a total tech blackout for Russian forces in Ukraine,
Right.
a disastrous fog-bound assault near Pokrovsk, and a massive, almost desperate leadership purge in Beijing.
And our job today is to connect those dots. Because when you stack these stories on top of each other, a theme emerges. It's not just about bad luck for our adversaries. It's about digital denial.
That's the operational term, yeah. But if we zoom out, it's really a story about the fragility of authoritarian control. Moscow and Beijing spend billions projecting this image of ironclad discipline and high-tech supremacy.
But the intel this week shows the exact opposite.
It shows systems that are brittle, paranoid, and frankly are barely holding it together.
So let's start with the story that's arguably changing the map right now. The Starlink switch-off. We've known for a while that Russian forces were piggybacking on Starlink.
Oh, for a long time. Buying them on the black market, smuggling them in, using them to run their war.
And this week, the signal went dead.
And it didn't just flicker, it was a hard cut. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to look at how they were handling this before. Previously, SpaceX and Ukraine were using things like speed restrictions, geofencing.
A game of whack-a-mole.
Exactly. If a terminal moved too fast, like it was strapped to a drone, it would cut out.
Which makes sense. Consumer Wi-Fi isn't meant to break the sound barrier.
Right, but that didn't solve the static problem. A Russian commander in a bunker, not moving, could still use that terminal to download imagery, talk to his superiors, coordinate artillery. The speed limit didn't matter to him.
So what changed? I mean, how do you kill the illicit terminals without killing the ones the Ukrainian army absolutely relies on?
They moved to a terminal authorization whitelist. And this is a massive shift. Instead of trying to find the bad actors and block them, they just flipped the logic. They said, if your unique device ID isn't on our specific list of approved hardware, you get nothing. You're dark.
That sounds incredibly simple in theory, but I have to imagine the execution is a nightmare.
Oh, it's a logistical beast. That's the friction of war. To make this work, Ukraine had to register, something like 200,000 of their own terminals?
And these aren't all standard issue kit, right?
Not at all. These are terminals bought by volunteers, donated by charities, shipped in from Poland by someone's cousin. It's a chaotic mix.
So you have to track down every single serial number. And if you miss a digit on a spreadsheet, you've just blinded a Ukrainian platoon in the middle of a firefight.
That was the risk. It was a huge administrative gamble. A typo could be fatal. But the calculation was that the short-term bureaucratic pain was worth the prize, permanently deleting the Russian command network.
And from what we're seeing, that bet paid off. What's the immediate fallout?
It's catastrophic for the Russian side. We have reports from Ukrainian brigade officers saying Russian FPV drone usage dropped off a cliff almost instantly.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the intercept chatter is wild. You have Russian units just screaming over unsecured analog radios because their digital backbone, it just evaporated.
It's interesting you mention analog radios, because that gets to the humiliating heart of this, doesn't it? Why was a supposed superpower like Russia relying on an American commercial product in the first place?
That is the key question. They were using Starlink to patch over a fundamental incompetence. Their own military communications, the systems they spent decades developing, are either jammed, broken, or they just don't exist in enough numbers.
So they were leasing their nervous system from Elon Musk?
Pretty much. It's like finding out the Death Star was running on a Wi-Fi password they stole from the neighbors.
Okay, that's not far off.
It isn't. They used Starlink to bypass their own failures. Now that the crutch is kicked away, they are back to 1980s technology in a 2026 war.
And we can see the physical results of that digital failure. It's not just lines of code, it's bodies on the ground, which I think takes us to the disaster at Pokrovsk.
This is the bloody consequence of going blind.
So set the scene for us. January 31st. We're near Pokrovsk, which has been a total meat grinder for months. and the weather turns.
A heavy, dense fog rolls in. Now, usually in military doctrine, fog is an opportunity for the attacker. It neutralizes optical sensors, thermal cameras, most drones.
It's your cover. If you want to move undetected, you move in the fog.
So the Russian commanders see the weather and think, this is it, this is our moment. They launch an assault. But because they are critically low on armored vehicles, something we've talked about before, they aren't sending tanks.
They're using what the reports call improvisation.
And improvisation is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. They sent waves of infantry on motorcycles, ATVs, and unarmored civilian trucks, just trying to rush the Ukrainian lines at speed, using the fog as a shield.
Motorcycles. In the mud and fog. Sounds like a suicide run.
It became one. The result was a massacre. Ukrainian forces destroyed nearly 4 platoons in a single day.
4 platoons?
Dozens killed, prisoners taken, vehicles just burning in the mud.
But wait, if the fog was so thick and the Russians were moving fast, how did the Ukrainians catch them so easily? Why was the Russian coordination so bad?
And that brings us right back to the whitelist. Fog blinds your eyes, but it doesn't fix your logistics. Because of the Starlink denial, the Russian commanders couldn't coordinate the assault in real time. The guys on the motorcycles couldn't talk to the guys with the mortars.
So they're just riding blind into a kill zone.
Right.
With no one to warn them, they're driving straight into an ambush.
Precisely. Russia is trading mass for coherence. They are throwing bodies and cheap vehicles at the problem because they lack genuine military synchronization. They thought the fog would save them, but without digital coordination, fog just makes you lost.
It's a grim picture. A military that is devolving, losing its eyes, and getting slaughtered. And usually, when a regime fails this badly on the front, they start getting very nervous at home.
That is the historical pattern. When you lose control of the narrative abroad, you strangle the narrative at home. And that is exactly what the Kremlin is doing now.
We're seeing reports of new legislation being rushed through in Moscow. The excuse is counter-drone defense, but the fine print seems extensive.
Counter-drone is the Trojan horse here. The FSB is getting sweeping new authority to shut down communications nationwide.
Just turn it all off.
They can cut cell service, kill the internet, block messaging apps, all under this guise of stopping Ukrainian drone attacks.
And the kicker is the liability clause.
Yeah. Right. The legislation explicitly shields telecom providers from any lawsuits. So if the FSB decides to turn off the internet for all of Moscow because they're worried about a drone, the citizens have zero recourse.
They're building a master kill switch.
They are. Digital denial isn't just a weapon for the battlefield anymore. It's becoming the standard tool for domestic control. They know the war is going badly, and they are preemptively silencing anyone who might talk about it.
And speaking of controlling the story, there's been a lot of noise out of Crimea this week. The FSB claims they foiled a massive suicide bomber plot.
Yeah, you have to treat this with extreme skepticism. They've released these slick interrogation videos, detailed biographies of the terrorists, the whole production.
It feels a little too theatrical, doesn't it?
It's classic deflection. The timing is so suspicious. By painting Ukrainians as terrorists, they rally the domestic population, and it distracts from the fact that Russian air defense is full of holes.
It's a magic trick.
Look at the evil villain over here, so you don't notice the incompetence over there.
But while they're playing make-believe with terrorists, they're doing something very real and very dangerous to NATO. We need to talk about Poland.
This is the part that should worry everyone in Europe. We have confirmation now of cyber attacks from late December. They targeted Polish renewable energy facilities and a major heating plant.
And this was late December in Poland, so freezing cold.
Life-threateningly cold. And the attribution is solid. It's linked to FSB Center 16.
And who are they for those who don't follow the org chart?
These aren't the guys who hack your email. Center 16 is the high-end signals intelligence and cyber sabotage unit, the heavy hitters.
And this wasn't just spying.
No, espionage is quiet. This was sabotage. The malware was designed for irreversible data destruction. They wanted to brick the control systems.
That's just pure malice, trying to freeze civilians in a NATO country.
It's thuggery. But it's also a sign of weakness. You don't resort to sabotaging civilian heating plants if you're winning militarily. It's the act of a state that can't win a fair fight, so they start throwing rocks at the windows.
It's lashing out. But Russia isn't the only adversary having a chaotic week. We have to pivot east, because if you think the Kremlin is paranoid, take a look at what's happening in Beijing.
This story is arguably even more significant for the long-term balance of power. We are witnessing a massive purge at the very top of the Chinese military.
And when you say top, we aren't talking about mid-level people.
No. Xi Jinping has removed Vice Chairman Zheng Yuxia and the Chief of the Joint Staff, Liu Zhenli.
That's like the president firing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense on the same day.
Exactly. These were the so-called adults in the room for the PLA.
And the charges. It's not the usual corruption line.
Not this time. Official media is using the phrase political betrayal.
That is a loaded term. Betrayal implies something much darker than taking bribes.
It implies disloyalty, a threat to Xi's personal power, and this creates a fascinating paradox.
Okay, break that down.
The People's Liberation Army is supposed to be preparing for the most complex military operation in modern history, an invasion of Taiwan. That requires incredible coordination, trust, experienced leadership.
And she just decapitated that leadership. He fired the most experienced commanders he has.
So you have a military being told to get ready for war, but every general is terrified that if they make a decision, they'll be arrested for betrayal.
How can you be combat ready when the top priority is political survival?
You can't. It creates paralysis.
And yet, despite the internal chaos, they are still putting on a show externally. The pressure on Taiwan hasn't let up at all.
No, the gray zone aggression is constant. Military flights near Taiwan have surged, 15-fold in the last 5 years? They cross the median line daily. And just this week, we saw new footage of their Type 05 destroyer.
That's their big modern warship.
The pride of their fleet. It was filmed using electronic jamming missiles to warn off foreign aircraft. It's a flex.
Look at our shiny new tech.
But if you juxtapose that shiny destroyer with the purge in Beijing, the picture changes completely. China is flexing its hardware ships, planes, missiles to hide a massive software problem. Their human leadership is crumbling.
It really feels like that's the thread tying all of this together. Compensating for weakness.
That is the synthesis. Look at Russia. They compensated for their broken comms by stealing Starlink until they got caught. They compensate for bad tactics by throwing waves of men into the fog.
And China compensates for its internal mistrust by acting aggressively toward Taiwan.
Exactly. And the so what, for us, for you listening, is that we need to stop looking at these adversaries as 10-foot-tall giants.
They want us to see the parades and the propaganda videos.
Right. But this week proved that their systems are incredibly brittle. A single administrative change of whitelist broke the Russian army's coordination. One man's paranoia in Beijing has hollowed out the entire Chinese command structure.
Rigid systems break. They don't bend.
And right now we are hearing the cracking sounds.
So here is where we'll leave it today. A final thought for you to mull over. We've seen that Ukraine can cripple the Russian war machine just by denying them borrowed Wi-Fi, just by flipping a digital switch. If a software update can do that to an army, what happens to these authoritarian regimes when their own internal firewalls, the fear and propaganda that keep their people in check, start to crumble?
That is the ultimate question. Control works perfectly right up until the moment it doesn't.
Stay curious, stay informed. We'll see you in the next deep dive.